Most dividend investors get wrecked by the same two mistakes. They chase a high yield because it looks attractive, and they ignore one ratio that can reveal serious trouble before a dividend cut happens. That ratio is the payout ratio. And in this video, we're going beyond the usual dividend investing advice. I'll show you how to stress test a dividend stock, the drip trade-off almost nobody talks about, and why dividends versus total return is really a portfolio decision, not just a question of getting paid every quarter. Let's start with the trap that catches even experienced investors, the high yield trap. A high dividend yield looks great on paper. If one stock yields 7% and another yields 3%, you might naturally think the 7% stock is the better income investment. But here's the problem. A high yield can sometimes be a warning sign, and there's a simple reason why. Remember the basic formula. Dividend yield equals annual dividend divided by share price. So if a company pays a $4 annual dividend on a $100 stock, the yield is 4%. But imagine the stock falls from $100 to $60. The company is still paying that same $4 dividend. Now the yield is about 6.7%. Nothing improved about the business. The yield simply went up because the stock price went down. And that's where investors can get fooled. They see a stock yielding 7%, 8%, or even 10% and think, I'm getting an amazing deal. But sometimes the market is saying something completely different. It's saying there's a reason this stock has fallen. Maybe profits are declining. Maybe the company has too much debt. Maybe the industry is struggling. Or maybe investors are starting to believe the dividend isn't sustainable. And if the dividend eventually gets cut, you can get hit twice. First, you lose part of the income you were expecting. Then the stock price can fall even further because investors who bought it specifically for the dividend start selling. So the real question isn't what's the yield, it's why is the yield so high? And that's exactly where our next metric becomes incredibly important. Payout ratio, the real safety check. Here's the part I would pay the most attention to if you're serious about dividend investing. Because a dividend doesn't magically appear. The company has to actually earn enough money to support it. The basic calculation is simple. Dividend per share divided by earnings per share. So let's say a company earns $5 per share and pays $2 in dividends. Its payout ratio is 40%. That means it's paying out 40% of its earnings and keeping the other 60% inside the business. That's generally a much more comfortable position than a company earning $5 and paying $4.50. That company has a 90% payout ratio, and there's not much room for things to go wrong. For many regular companies, once you get around 80% or higher, I would start paying much closer attention. That doesn't automatically mean a dividend cut is coming, but the margin for error is getting smaller, and around 95% or higher, the situation becomes even more concerning for a typical company. But here's where you need some nuance. You can't use the exact same payout ratio rules for every type of business. REITs and BDCs are different. These businesses are structured to distribute a large portion of their income to shareholders. So a payout ratio around 95% can be much more normal for certain REITs or BDCs than it would be for a regular corporation. That's why experienced dividend investors don't just look at one number and immediately declare a stock safe or dangerous. They look at the type of company and what metric makes the most sense. For example, you can also look at the free cash flow payout ratio. That's dividend payments compared with the actual cash the business generates. And this can sometimes give you a better picture of whether the company really can afford to keep sending money to shareholders. But there's another mistake investors make here. They look at the payout ratio today and stop there. That's not enough. You want to look at the trend over several years. Imagine a company normally has a 55% payout ratio. Then, one year, profits temporarily collapse because of a one-time problem. Suddenly, the payout ratio jumps to 120%. That looks terrible, but it doesn't necessarily mean the dividend is doomed. If the underlying business is still healthy and earnings recover, that ratio could come back down. Now compare that to a company whose payout ratio goes from 55% to 65% to 75% to 90% over several years. That's a very different story. The company may be struggling to grow its earnings while continuing to increase its dividend, and eventually something has to give. That's why the payout ratio isn't about finding one magical number. It's about asking, how comfortably can this business afford the dividend? Because when a company can't comfortably support their payout, a dividend cut can become a question of when, not if. And that's where investors can suffer a double hit: less dividend income plus a falling share price. So don't just ask how much a company pays you. Ask how much it can actually afford to pay you. Dividend aristocrats and kings. Useful, but not sufficient. Now, you might be thinking, what if I just stick with dividend aristocrats or dividend kings? That can be a useful starting point. These are companies with very long histories of increasing their dividends. But here's the important distinction. A dividend streak tells you what happened in the past. It doesn't guarantee what happens next. A company can have decades of dividend increases and eventually run into serious problems. The label doesn't protect you from falling earnings, excessive debt, changing industry, or an unsustainable payout. So instead of asking how many years has this company increased its dividend, ask a second question. Can the business still afford today's dividend? That's where the payout ratio, earnings growth, cash flow, and balance sheet become much more important. The streak is useful, but it's not a guarantee. And that brings us to a much bigger question about dividend investing: dividends versus total return. Here's the reality check that every dividend investor eventually needs to understand. A dividend isn't extra money created out of nowhere. When a company pays a dividend, cash leaves the company and goes to shareholders. All else equal, the company's value falls by roughly the amount of that distribution. So if you own a $100 stock and it pays a $2 dividend, you don't suddenly have $102 of free wealth. You might have a stock worth roughly $98 plus $2 in cash. Your return comes from both components: share price appreciation plus dividends. That's your total return. And this matters because investors sometimes focus so heavily on dividend yield that they completely ignore the performance of the underlying business. A stock yielding 6% isn't automatically better than one yielding 2%. What if the 6% stock loses 10% in value, while the 2% stock gains 15%? The second investment could produce the better total return. That's why dividend investing is really a portfolio construction decision. Dividend-focused strategies can provide attractive income, and some dividend-paying companies have historically been more stable than highly speculative growth stocks. For some investors, receiving cash also feels better psychologically than having to sell shares to create income. But there can be a trade-off. A portfolio focused heavily on dividends can miss companies that reinvest more of their profits into growth. So the question isn't, are dividends good or bad? The better question is, what combination of income, growth, risk, and total return makes sense for my portfolio? And that leads directly into one of the most automatic decisions dividend investors make: DRIP. DRIP. The part nobody questions. Most dividend investors automatically reinvest their dividends, and for good reason. It's convenient. Your dividends buy more shares, those shares produce more dividends, and over time the process can compound. But there's one trade-off people rarely talk about. DRIP doesn't care about valuation. If your stock is attractively priced, DRIP buys it. If the stock is ridiculously expensive, DRIP buys it. If the market crashes, DRIP buys it. If the stock is trading at a record valuation, DRIP still buys it. You're automatically purchasing at whatever price is available. And that isn't necessarily bad. In fact, for most investors, DRIP is probably a perfectly reasonable strategy. It keeps you consistent, you don't have to remember to reinvest, you can often buy fractional shares, and you're less likely to let dividends sit around as cash because you don't know what to do with them. But there's another approach. You could take those dividends and decide where they should go. Maybe the company you receive the dividend from is extremely expensive right now. Instead, You might put that cash into another high-quality dividend stock that's trading at a better valuation. That gives you more control, but it also requires more work and, importantly, more discipline. So DRIP isn't automatically better or worse. It's a trade-off between simplicity and control. And remember one more thing if you're investing in a taxable account. Reinvesting the dividend doesn't necessarily make the dividend tax-free. You can still owe taxes on the dividend even though you never actually received the cash in your bank account. So don't think of DRIP as free money. Think of it as an automatic reinvestment tool. And if you're starting to realize that managing individual dividend stocks takes more work than it sounds, there's another option worth considering. Individual stocks versus dividend ETFs. Picking individual dividend stocks gives you control. You can choose the companies you believe have the best combination of dividend income, growth, valuation, and financial strength. But there's a cost. You have to keep monitoring them. You need to watch earnings, you need to watch the payout ratio, you need to pay attention to debt, you need to understand what's happening in the company's industry, and you need to notice when the original reason you bought the stock is no longer true. If you have 15 or 20 individual dividend stocks, that can become a lot of work. A dividend ETF takes a different approach. Instead of depending on you to identify every good dividend company, the fund gives you diversification across many holdings. There are different approaches too. Some dividend ETFs focus more on dividend growth. Others focus on higher current yield, and some use quality or dividend growth screens to try to avoid weaker companies. You don't need to pick every stock yourself, but you're also giving up some control over exactly what you own. So, here's the framework I'd use. If you genuinely enjoy researching companies and you're willing to monitor your holdings, individual dividend stocks can make sense. But if you don't have the time or interest to regularly check the payout ratios, earnings, debt, and business conditions of 15 or 20 companies, a dividend ETF can make your life much easier. Because the biggest secret in dividend investing isn't finding the stock with the highest yield, it's finding a strategy you can actually stick with. And that means looking beyond the dividend itself. Look at the business, look at the payout, look at the valuation, look at total return, and most importantly, understand why you're buying the investment in the first place. And if you want to learn more on retiring, make sure to watch this video as well.